The show was not created by a medical professional. It was done by one man and his guests on the show talking about their struggles with mental illness. If you are having thoughts of suicide or in a state of distress, reaching out is the first step towards safety. Call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or text TALK to 741-741 to text with a trained crisis counselor from the crisis text line for free 24/7. If you know someone who may be at risk or struggling with depression or anxiety or any mental health issues, please follow everything in the description below to help those that are in need. Life can be so very rough.
Sometimes I get sad. What do you do when you get sad?
This is Something Gives with Josh Ronquist, a show from the mind of someone dealing with mental health issues, wanting to talk about life, mental health, and music with musicians, fans, and those in the business.
I want to feel good about myself, and I don't know how.
How do you not be sad?
I'm here to spread the word, to talk about our struggles and what we can do to get better.
I'm responsible for my own happiness. I can't even be responsible for my own breakfast.
While this show cannot cure any mental health issues, sometimes the mind just needs to not feel alone.
There's a lesson here for all of us.
So let's begin the show. Hey everybody, it's Josh Ronquist here with another episode of Something Gives. And this one is most likely just going to be a quick, short little show this time around, as I just want to focus on one topic, and as I'm recording this, it just passed the 10th anniversary of said event. And that is, of course, the second time that my family fell apart. If you listen to the first episode of the show, you know what happened, and it has been quite a rough thing for me. There was a lot of things I learned when I was on my last day of 11 years old, and from the age of 12 on, my life was never really the same. Move ahead 9 years, when I was entering the last of my 20s, and my family fell apart again. To go over things a little bit more, my dad had a big get-together at his second home, which is now his only home now, after my parents got a divorce, so on and so forth. But my mom was there, my brother was there, both of my sisters were there, all three of my nieces and my nephew were there. I was not there, as I was in the process of starting my very first original band that actually amounted to something called Shattered, which if you look back at the beginning of this YouTube page, you'll actually see it there. We had a fun little mockumentary that we did. I had really big plans on that, and it all just kind of fell apart for various reasons. Maybe I'll get into that at another time, but it was in the very early stages where it was just my guitarist and I. Our bassist, vocalist, was starting to come in around that time too. I don't remember if we were officially Shattered at that point. If we weren't, it was really, really close. But there was a big music festival that was going on at my former employer, a now defunct music store / skateboarding store called Riffs and Rails, which, if you couldn't guess by the name, focused on music and skateboarding. My guitarist and I were jamming out, and then all of a sudden, I get a phone call telling me to go home immediately. Terrible things have happened. So I rushed home, and I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know if one of my family members died. I don't know if there was an accident. I don't know if someone said that they had cancer. There were so many different things that could have happened that I just did not know. I got home, and then a little before that, well, a little after, my oldest sister was home. My home, anyways, and she explained all of the bad things that happened while I was not there. I'm not going to go into the details of that, as is kind of a common thing with me. It's not my story to tell, but I will say there are two sides to what happened. There's one side, which I didn't know until this year was true, and the other side that I did not want to believe was capable of the things they did. I was told both sides, and I did not want to believe either side. I was in so much pain from everything I learned that happened up there that I didn't believe anybody. I just wanted to be left alone. I did not pick sides. And little did I know, my life pretty much got destroyed by staying in the middle. To this day, I've never heard my other sister's voice since that night. And I even saw her at my brother's funeral a month and a half ago. How sad is that? A little under 10 years since I saw her last, and that was the last time I've heard her voice. I never saw my youngest niece since that night either. And I gotta say, my nieces, my nephew, they were... Well, I can't speak for my youngest niece, but I can speak for my oldest sister's daughters and my other sister's son to say that they have had terrible lives since that moment. Not to say they didn't have terrible moments before that, I'm sure they did, if it's anything like my family, my upbringing, but I learned some things about all three of them that just absolutely break my heart. And I know their lives were never really the same. Especially my oldest niece, who really does take after me in all the wrong ways. She's been so hurt by life. She's had a lot of terrible things happen to her. I'll leave it at that. My other niece, from my oldest sister, takes after me in the best ways. She loves to talk, she loves to have fun. She's just so happy all the time. She's everything that I want to be when I do interviews. And it's just fantastic to see. It makes me so happy to see that. Although it hurts me that my oldest niece has been hurt so much in her life. And my nephew, as well. Who actually, if I understand things correctly, has nothing to do with his mom anymore. Which I honestly cannot blame him one single bit. But anyways, getting back to my side of things here. My life pretty much changed forever at that point. If the events of August 18th, 2000 wasn't bad enough, July 4th, 2009 sealed the deal that my life was never going to be okay again, at least when it comes to family. I was called everything under the sun by various people. Mainly my brother, of course, because he always stirred the pot. He loved making everything worse. He was just that kind of person. And again, it hurts me that we never reconciled before he died. I've been told that he wanted to reconcile with me before he died. I don't think I believe it. I think that just sounds good. And maybe even the people who said that can have some closure when it comes to that. Not me. No, I know what he did to me. I can probably count on one hand the amount of good times that we had together. And by one hand, I probably mean 1 to 3 fingers. And none of those were life-changing moments. Those were just times that, hey, he wasn't complete, another jerk to me. Sadly, one of those times was him just asking me how a PlayStation 4 works. That might have been the only phone call that I've ever gotten from him a few years back when he bought a PS4. Asking me how you would hook up a mobile hotspot to your PS4, how to get the internet Blu-ray aspect of it to work, so on and so forth. That was possibly one of the only civil conversations I've ever had with him in my entire life. And that breaks my heart thinking about that. But yeah, getting back to that night. It wasn't just my brother saying things about me. Both of my sisters disowned me for not believing their side. And the other participants begrudgingly kept me around in their lives, despite me not picking sides. And from that moment on, it just got worse. And you know what, I'll just say it. I'm not going to say what it was, but I'll just say it was between my sisters and my dad. If my oldest sister ever wants to come onto this show and talk about it, happily. My other sister, I want nothing to do with her again. She has shown her true colors to me and everybody else that ever cared about her. So I have no reason to ever speak to her again. But if my oldest sister is listening to this and she wants to come on here, and ever talk about it, she absolutely can. If she doesn't, then I'm leaving all of those aspects out. But it was between my sisters and my dad. My dad never really trusted me or honestly loved me since that night. He was so hurt by everything that happened that by the end of it, he just said that he didn't care if I believed him or not. He couldn't trust me anymore. I was just a terrible person for not picking sides. And of course, my mom, I think she's on my sister's sides now, but I don't really know. My mom is so whacked out, not from her own fault. I don't think she caused any of the mental problems that she's going through, but I did suffer a lot of repercussions because of her mental state. But she apologized for anything that happened with my sisters within the last 2 months with my brother dying. She tried doing that to me too, but she also said it in a way that I'm sorry for what happened in the past. You know, the past. And if it makes me a bad son, it makes me a bad son, but I didn't forgive her. It was not an apology to me. The way that she said it. It's like when someone says that, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not an apology. That's not apologizing for the action that you caused to make someone hurt. That's saying, I'm sorry that you feel the way that you do because of what I did. That's not an apology. And I can also say that about my other sister as well. So if you're kind of keeping score with all this, the only ones that have been a part of my life in any way, shape, or form that I want a part of my life or has chosen to stay in my life is my oldest sister, her daughters, my nieces, which is 2 of my 3 nieces, and my nephew. For my immediate family, that's all who talks to me now. For better, for worse, from my choosing or from their choosing. And it all stemmed from this incident in 2009. What happened in 2000 was bad enough, but that was 100% because of my mom's mental state. And we didn't know. And I'm really hurt by it because my mom is just smart enough not to get help. To not let anyone outside the family see her side, her real side. If you've ever met her, she's the sweetest person in the world. She's the kind of sweet that gets really annoying to people, where she doesn't get a hint that people don't want to talk, that they've been talking too long. So many variations of it. But when you're a part of the immediate family, you see the total opposite. At least when I was growing up, you saw the hatred, you saw the vulgarity, you saw the hoarding, you saw all these horrible things, which really had a massive toll on me. And it's always gonna hurt. It always is. That's just how it's gonna be. And the whole situation has never left my mind. If it's not every day, it's every other day, where my mind is just so completely destroyed from all of this. And yeah, if that wasn't enough of a hint, I'll just go ahead and say it. That night was my second suicide attempt. I really felt the weight of the world crush me so bad, I had to try to kill myself. And this is how bad things were between my brother and I. My dad had a gun cabinet, and he had the key by it. And that was the way that I thought I had to go. So I went to my dad's gun cabinet when I thought everybody was gone, went looking for the key. By the time I found it, my brother walked in, saw what I was trying to do, took the gun out of my hand. After a bit of a struggle, I was on the floor crying. He put the gun back, took the key with him, and he didn't say how stupid I am for wanting to kill myself. He wasn't trying to reassure me that things were going to get better. I mean, if you've listened to other episodes of the show, he tried getting me to kill myself later in life. In fact, it was pretty much every day after this, because I believe it was the first time that he saw that I was trying to commit suicide. But not all those things. You think that he would want to keep his brother alive. You know, you would think, like in a normal, loving, caring family relationship, he would try to stop me, to keep me alive. No, what he said was, don't do that. You're not, and I'm changing the words here because I hate the word. Alright, let me change, alright, I'm going to start that over so it sounds more complete, but just know that I'm changing the word to another phrase. You know what the word is. I don't want to say it. Don't do that. You're so mentally handicapped that you'll screw up and live. Took the key with him and left. That's my relationship with my brother, ladies and gentlemen. And ever since then, because I tried once before, I didn't try in 2000, I tried over an incident that happened not too long after that. I believe it's 2001, maybe 2002, where I was actually getting my snowmobile license and I was taking the test. Had to go to this frozen lake, which if you live in the south or anywhere that doesn't get snow, you think being out on a lake in the winter is completely preposterous. But if you've ever been to the Midwest or anywhere where it gets really cold with a lot of snow and ice, if it gets to a certain amount of inches that the water freezes, it's safe enough to drive a semi on. Like if you remember that show Ice Road Truckers, they're not screwing around. Sometimes it is safe enough to drive a full-blown semi on the road made of ice. But yes, they have a snowmobile track out there for driving, and my dad was very, very adamant about me getting my snowmobile license, despite me not even wanting to ride a snowmobile. I got my gun license. I don't want to own a gun ever. I got my hunter's license. I never want to kill a deer. I never want to do any of that stuff. Got my ATV license. Never want to drive an ATV again because of my life. But what caused all of that was the very last one that I got, my snowmobile license. To this day, my dad likes to say that I don't do any of that stuff anymore because one of the last times I was on a dirt bike, there was a little hill on this track, this railroad track that became an ATV trail, and I flew over top of the bike, and I never wanted to ride again. Which I will say that is part of it, but what really happened, why I don't want to do any of that stuff ever again, was while my dad was driving me there, he got into a big fight with my brother and my mom. Can't remember what it was about, but it didn't involve me. But he went to take me to the snowmobile driving test so I could get my license. And I brought the manual with me. Not the manual, but like the license instructions, you know, like how do you make a turn without a turn signal? How fast are you supposed to go? All that stuff. I apparently, God, this is hard to say. I was apparently reading too fast for him, and I was flipping the pages too much that he eventually stopped truck on the side of the road, took the booklet out of my hand, ripped it in half, threw it in the back, and started beating the crap out of me. Keep in mind, I was 12, now that I'm remembering this. It was that winter in 2000. Yeah, it's playing back in my mind now. It was that winter because that's when everything started falling apart with my mom. That summer. And he got into a fight with my mom and my brother. And because I was turning the pages too often for him while he was driving, didn't tell me to stop, didn't tell me to slow down, didn't tell me to stop reading. He just pulled the truck over, ripped it out of my hands, ripped it in half, threw it in the back, started beating the crap out of me, and said, if you don't like it, you can move out. I was 12. And I vividly remember while I was in the middle of the driving test, I stopped the snowmobile and started crying. And amazingly enough, I still got the license. But even with me stopping in the middle of the course and just bawling my eyes out, I didn't say what happened. You guys gotta remember, I thought this was normal. I thought this was how every family was raised. It wasn't until I got older where I realized that my childhood was really bad. Not the worst, not the best, but it's definitely in the bottom half. Low income. Didn't have enough money to get by. I found out later my mom was actually hoarding money from my dad, but that's a whole different story. But there was just so much money problems. And not just money problems, but mental problems. Everyone in my family has some kind of mental trauma, alive or dead. Everyone succumbed to some kind of mental problems. Trauma, PTSD, anxiety, depression, all of these things. And I know I got all of it, and I wanted to record this show after July 4th, 2019, for two reasons. One, if I tried recording it on the actual day, it would have hurt way too much for me because dates, especially big anniversary dates of bad things, really hurt. They hurt really bad. And the other reason is I wanted to make sure I was going to be here. If the 10th anniversary would have happened last year, I probably would have tried to commit suicide again. But even though it doesn't sound like it, right now, July 5th, 2019, just about 3 a.m. here as I'm recording this. I am in such a better mental state than I've possibly ever been, which should be looked at as a great thing and an absolutely tragic thing. It's a great thing because I'm not suicidal anymore, but I never know what could trigger my suicidal thoughts again. And thankfully, my antidepressants are working. I found the right medication that is working for me. I still feel numb to a lot of things. I mean, there are things that still bring me joy, but, it's like I'm not getting the highs that I used to have. Maybe that just comes with being older, too. I have no idea. But suicidal thoughts aren't there anymore, which I'm so happy about. And of course, the most important thing is that I know I have so much progress left to do. And with mental illness, mental health issues, there's never really a cure. At least not yet. I wish there was. I would do anything I could to try to find some kind of happiness by finding a cure for these mental illness problems. But all we can do right now is just try to live every single day. Make it to the end of the day, get sleep, wake up, repeat. And in between, do what we can to make ourselves happy. Much like I talked about on the last show, working towards those goals. Working on that foundation of the house, and then being able to build the house and furnish the house and the landscape. But bringing things back around, and why I named the show that I did this week, this episode, is because it truly is a nightmare to remember. It's a date that will forever haunt my memories. It's never going to go away. All I can do is try to handle it better. I wish it was like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where you could erase memories. But life doesn't work that way. At least not yet. Amnesia is one thing, but that can be caused by so many different things, and you can't pinpoint what you lose memory of. I also don't recommend that in any way, shape, or form. Brain damage is not the way to go. But if I've learned anything from living the day that I did today, and how did I live it? I played my PS4, I watched YouTube stuff, I ate, and I did a lot of cleaning in my apartment. Reorganized some things, trying to make things look a lot better, look a little different since I'm home so often. I just wanted it to look a little better in here. Well, I'm still in the process of that, and I'm trying to make room to put all my drums into my apartment, which, unless I'm able to be fortunate enough to ever get a house, or if for some reason I get a practice studio of any kind, or if I get into another band, they'll never be set up again, which truly breaks my heart. But with all that, all the stuff that I did today, I'm probably still going to be playing some PS4 after I record the show. I know, these are my hours. They just are. But even with all these terrible things that are constantly in my memory, and I just keep bringing this up with the show, but it's so important, I'm still here, despite 8 suicide attempts, despite the horrendous upbringing that I had, especially during my formative years of being a child into my teenage years, being some of the worst times of my life. So many horrible things that have happened since I left home to now, and within the last 10 months, just so many bad things happening this year that, without question, it's been the worst year of my life. I am still here. I'm still trying. I'm still fighting. That's all I can do. I'll never be a perfect person. I know I'm always going to have some kind of mental act-ups. I know therapy needs to be an option for me again once I can find... And that's a little tangent as well. What is holding me back right now is finding a therapist that can do more than 6 sessions, because my current insurance is apparently only covering therapists that do short-term therapy. And I need more than short-term. And I do not want to be passed around by different therapists, retelling the same stories and not getting any progress. I want to find one that's going to be a right fit for me, that I can go with for the long haul until my mind starts to get better. But anyways, I'm still here. I don't have any suicidal thoughts in my mind anymore. And if I can make it past a horrendous situation like I did in 2009, even if I'm still alive, not by my own choosing that night, but the fact that several suicide attempts later, that I'm still here, and it's coming up on, I believe, 8, 9, 10 months since my last suicide attempt, that I haven't even thought to kill myself. I'm doing something right. I'm slowly but surely getting my mind to a better spot. And that's what you gotta do too. Because look at me. You could be listening to the show and just completely feeling so sorry for me. You could be having the opposite approach. It's like, oh, listen to you, listen to my story. And you're playing through it in your mind, everything that you'd say to me about how much worse your life was better, or how much worse your life was than mine. And you could be absolutely right. But again, remember, you're still here, which means that you can try to make your life better. Will you get there? I don't know. It depends if your mind will allow yourself to be happy, if you can find the right things in life to help you be happy, work towards those goals that will make you happy, and appreciating what is around you that is a positive thing. If you can do all those things in some way, shape, or form, that foundation will remain solid. Then you can start building the house, then furnish the house, because that's what's so important. Well, we all have our nightmares to remember. Just remember, with those past experiences, they're gone now. The only way they live on is in your memory, or if someone is spiteful enough to keep bringing it back so it's in your mind. But even with that, you're still here. And I'm rooting for you too, even though I might not know your story. The fact that you're trying to progress, the fact that you want to be better, that's what matters. That's what makes you a strong person. That's what makes you a good person. No matter any of our flaws, and trust me, I've got mine. I've got my flaws in strides. But if you're always trying to progress, you're always trying to get better, you are a good person. And if you keep striving for that positivity and goodness, one day you won't have to strive for it anymore. It'll just be there. Let's try to make that happen. I think that's it. I think that's a great way to wrap up this episode of Something Gives. Thank you so very much for sticking around this whole time. It truly means a lot to me. This episode was extremely hard to make. As hard as it was to make since the second episode of the show, especially if you listen back to that one. That was me in that level right before suicidal thoughts came in. I was almost there. Thankfully, I never got there, but just like with this, I feel like I purged a lot of thoughts out. If you can relate, hopefully it helped purge any thoughts that you have as well, knowing my struggle. And again, thank you for sticking around, and I don't know what the next episode's going to be. It seems like the show has really changed from the initial thought that I thought it was going to be. I thought my first episode was going to be the only one to cover my story, and look how much that's changed. And it still might change in the future, but we'll get there. But anyways, follow Something Gives on Facebook at facebook.com/somethinggivespod. Sorry, facebook.com/somethinggivespodcast. Or go to thatgermanguy.com, look for Something Gives on the top right, and you'll get access to all the episodes so far. And of course, if you want to hear my stuff outside of mental health, make sure to check out what I do as That Drummer Guy at thatdrummerguy.com for all of your drummer guy needs. And until next time, this is Josh Runquist saying, see ya. This has been Something Gives with Josh Runquist. Tune in next time where we continue the discussion of mental health, music, and life in general. Make sure to check out all your favorite social media sites to follow what I do as Josh Runquist and That Drummer Guy. And until next time, just remember,
it's always worth it. Hang in there, stay positive. It's worth the fight.
this show was not created by a medical professional. It was done by one man and his guests on the show talking about their struggles with mental illness. If you are having thoughts of suicide or in a state of distress, reaching out is the first step towards safety. Call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or text TALK to 741-741 to text with a trained crisis counselor from the crisis text line for free 24/7. If you know someone who may be at risk or struggling with depression or anxiety or any mental mental health issues, please follow everything in the description below to help those that are in need.